Is Clash Royale healing? This is a question posed by many amongst Clash Royale's player base after years of troublesome updates that have been thrown their way, and a question that doesn't seem to have a clear-cut answer. On one hand, the Clash Royale's updates seem to be growing in their grandeur, a lot more people are satisfied in regards to those updates, and Clash Royale seems to be experimenting with adding new cards after mostly dabbling with goblin themed cards as well as evolutions for the past year. On the other hand, these updates have come at the cost of accepting that Clash Royale has blended nicely with the mobile gaming philosophy of having a blatant disadvantage whenever not spending money, and an incentive to do so once you inevitably become hooked on the game. Over the years of criticising Clash Royale, I've personally come to accept that this was the course the game was destined to take, and any criticism seems to be nothing more than water under the bridge in Supercell's eyes. Answering the question of is Clash Royale healing first comes with taking a trip back in time to when a vast amount of people saw the game in a negative way, and that happened to be upon the introduction of evolutions and the elite level, otherwise known as level 15. Evolutions didn't receive as much backlash as level 15 did, mainly because evolutions were a new game mechanic, and minus their absurd pricing and unbalanced nature upon their launch, there was a much larger elephant in the room to be addressed. Clash Royale had already been pushing it in regards to level upgrades, with level 14 being released just under a year and a half prior. Even those who had spent a moderate amount of money on the game hadn't maxed out their decks and only had a few on hand for them to actually play around with. If you were a free-to-play attempting to get into Clash Royale and didn't have a spare account from 2016 lying about, good luck getting to level 14, at least without feeling like patience is a virtue not worth living your life by. Furthermore, if you did stockpile gold in anticipation for level 15, congratulations, the upgrade to level 15 was free, although you had to hunt for these new things called elite wildcards at the time, of which their exchange rate to this very day still remains absolutely horrible, with it being easier to spend actual money to buy those elite wildcards as opposed to just spending your gold, or even worse, your gems. The most insulting part about this was the fact that prior to level 14's addition to the game in August of 2021, Clash Royale ran an event called Slash Royale to encourage people to stockpile gold and to upgrade their cards up to level 13 and eventually ease the pain of upgrading to level 14 when the update actually released. This subsequently served as a final straw that broke the camel's back for a majority of the player base. They had just finished upgrading most of their cards to level 14 whilst being forced to grind for gold to actually succeed in maxing out that card, only to be told their efforts to grind for that gold were worthless because the upgrade from level 14 to level 15 no longer required gold, except if you felt like wasting that gold by exchanging it for elite wildcards, which seemed like a horrible deal as opposed to spending actual money on those wildcards. This was furthered by Clash Royale insisting that this was a positive change to encourage game progression, only for that statement to be mired in the basic fact that level 15 cards were designed to be elite and exclusive, serving as a stopgap and essentially ensuring that level 15 would be the level bottleneck for the game, which subsequently resulted in a lot of unfairness and an outrageous amount of time now required to fully max out your favourite decks once again. Now we jump back to the present, where elite wildcards and the concept of level 15 is still a thorn in most people's sides, but there's less salt in the wounds thanks to the fact that people have adapted alongside utilised the other game mechanic that came with this controversial update, that game mechanic being none other than evolutions. As I mentioned before, a lot of people were on the fence about evolutions when they were released. Many people saw the price tag and were initially scared away, whilst others were tempted by how overpowered they were. Thankfully they were balanced out, although they were balanced after many people had seen how overpowered and subsequently brought them, and successive evolutions haven't been a total pain to deal with. In an otherwise simplistic game, evolutions were one of the game mechanics that were sorely needed to offer the game a fresh coat of paint, mainly to offer a more dynamic environment for an otherwise plain and predictable game. Unfortunately, evolution still remains somewhat hard to access, but Clash Royale has been tidying up their tracks by offering the occasional random event that allows you to complete so many tasks to unlock evolution shards for a specific evolution, especially some of the evolutions that have been in the game for over a year at this point. Is it a perfect system? No. Would evolutions be better if it were a game mechanic that were unlocked quite like champion abilities? Yes, yet I also acknowledge that to stay afloat, Clash Royale does need to make some money somewhere. You can begin to see from a viewer's perspective how the question of is Clash Royale healing is quite hard to answer. There's a lot of caveats when it comes to these questions. It seems as if Clash Royale hasn't really done enough to really mitigate the main issues that initially plunged the game into a controversial status in the first place. However, these are issues that have stemmed since 2023 and 2021 alongside 2019 if you really wish to reach back into Clash Royale's history. This leads us to the more important question of how did Clash Royale do during 2024? Is this a game that's truly learning its lessons, or is it regressing to its old status of being a money grab? This is where things go from being a match of objective facts to mere subjective opinions. 2024 was a mix of up and downs for Clash Royale. out, there was a summer season themed around goblins, which I argue was a bit repetitive, but the player base seemed to enjoy more goblins joining them in the arena and in their decks. The Goblin Queen arena also was a thing. I honestly am a little conflicted as to how I feel about the Goblin Queen arena. If we look at things positively, it was a fun gimmicky arena that was relatively enjoyable and had a neat game mechanic. If we choose to look at things with a bit more scrutiny, I think it should have been one of those things that existed for a week or two as opposed to taking up a spot in the game for months, with the whole point of using goblins eventually growing stale, as everyone just started using meta decks as if they were playing in a tournament or challenge. We also saw lucky drops be introduced to the game, which have had a little glimpse of hope as for unlocking elite wild cards and level 15 cards insanely quickly, but are mostly just another way to sprinkle in some extra progression, even if it's ultimately randomized. 2024 was also a year where Clash Royale experienced a very visible shake-up with the development team, considering a new community manager amongst other roles have been appointed to these positions, and a year where Clash Royale simply stuck with simply existing and releasing evolutions every month through the past royale to keep people engaged. Was it admittedly a little lazy? Yes, but it's better than Clash Royale being abandoned and going into a full money grabbing frenzy to the point where basic purchases become intolerable and worthless. Clash Royale mainly stayed the course throughout 2024, allowing it to be a year filled with evolution, additions and nothing else of substance to presumably quiet the waters surrounding the previously controversial updates. Yet this wait and these lukewarm updates were seemingly worth it, considering Clash Royale finally released 2 cards near the end of the year and into January 2025, a tower troop known as the Royal Chef and a playable card known as the Rune Giant. This update and these troops, so far at least, have been received somewhat positively by the player base. It's not a clear money grab or cash grab. There have been tasks in game where you've been able to earn enough cards to actually use the troops in battle, as well as have fun with them without being absolutely pulverized. Of course there are ways these troops, especially the Rune Giant, have been exploited and broken, but I feel as if that's become part of the magic of Clash Royale as time has gone on, which is why many people feel as if Clash Royale is healing once again, albeit at the cost of relevancy as well as popularity. Clash Royale unfortunately made the mistake of alienating a significant part of their player base that was previously playing the game free to play, either forced them to buy things that they didn't want to spend the money on to adapt to the fact that the later stage of the game leveraged the use of your money as opposed to skill, which then subsequently encouraged those free to play players to move on to another game that was more wallet friendly, such as Brawl Stars. This has made Clash Royale less appealing for new players who aren't eager to spend their money on the game, which means Clash Royale's more casual player base mostly consists of those who plays 2v2 battles or the occasional challenge or grand challenge, which happens to be a lot more skill based than anything related to the ladder system in the game. With anything that becomes less appealing in the gaming world, it has the effect of people no longer telling their friends about Clash Royale, and content creators who make videos about the game have seen a massive drop off in views in the last year thanks to people either avoiding it like the Black Plague or trying out the game only to realise that the game's only entertaining whenever someone else is playing it in front of them. However, many people feel as if Clash Royale is healing purely thanks to the lack of broad reaching complaints that have been made about the game, and in all honesty, I feel that the game has pushed away so many people who used to be a part of this negative crowd of individuals to the point where there isn't a significant portion of the player base complaining anymore. Plus, a lot of people who play Clash Royale nowadays have gotten used to mobile games generally being rip-offs, compared to people who grew up on mobile games that weren't easily monetized and therefore complained about any sort of new monetization system being added to Clash Royale. Does the game still have a lot of issues to work through? Yes, it certainly does. Yet, I can't help but feel like people are enjoying the game more than complaining about it nowadays, and those who are complaining about the game have mostly moved on to other games or even to other chapters of their lives at this point. There also haven't been any major controversies surrounding the game in recent months, which is a good thing compared to the almost endless onslaught of controversies that surrounded the game in 2023 and during the earlier months of 2024. Clash Royale has admittedly entered its twilight stage in its life cycle, where the developers can release an evolution or two as part of the past royale with some mild balance changes and call it a day. There are many negative things that could be said about this mindset, but there's nothing to complain about if it seems to be working and if it's ensuring that the game still manages to stand on its feet. I wish there was a little more passion and enthusiasm behind the modern state of Clash Royale, but this isn't 2016 or 2017 anymore, and Clash Royale doesn't pump out significant updates month after month like they did back then. The game has matured, and after 9 years of existence, I personally see it as a miracle that they're still bothering to update the game and are drawing in new players to make money off of, even if the game is now entering its Twilight Years with it becoming less relevant as time goes on. Relevancy isn't everything. There always will be players that are willing to ignore the various blights on Clash Royale's existence in favour of enjoying their favourite game. Clash Royale's player base hasn't shrunk dramatically, but its growth has significantly stagnated and even contracted slightly. If we're going to use statistics as a metric, 2024 was a surprisingly stable year, with Clash Royale only losing 1% of its player base on average, which is a lot lower than anyone could have expected. So, to finally answer the question of is Clash Royale healing, well, given the information provided in this video, it's a subjective opinion to have and there isn't a clear line in regards to facts to be presented. It's a question of perspective, community sentiment, and ultimately depends on whether you still enjoy the game or if you're in the process of moving on to something better. In my opinion, the aforementioned level 15 evolution update did irreversible damage to Clash Royale's reputation, and the ignorance surrounding it therefore forced the game into a tailspin. Not to its grave like many of us thought at the time, but definitely into its twilight years, with Clash Royale's developers needing to put in more effort to make the game more relevant in the face of many of the top quality mobile games that exist today, including Supercell's very own games such as Clash of Clans and Brawl Stars. Clash Royale's developers currently don't have an interest in bringing back extremely huge and game-changing monthly updates, but it leads me to believe that the game exists in this extremely strange limbo state where on the one hand you'll always have people coming back because it's considered nostalgic and it's closely associated with another game, Clash of Clans, yet on the other hand it has some glaring issues in regards to its progression and therefore makes it hard for people who aren't charmed by Supercell's library of games to really have fun playing it. A lot of people, including myself, are eagerly waiting to see what Clash Royale will do in 2025, with rumours circulating that this will be a year where Clash Royale and the now unalived Clash Mini will be combined through a massive update that will change Clash Royale forever. It's hard not to be excited. Yet that excitement is reserved for now because I'm pretty sure we've still got some time to go, and that may explain why the previous year has been slow update wise. As for now, all the player base can collectively do is hope that Clash Royale continues this slight upturn of having people view it more favourably amongst its stagnating player base, all the while staying the course to avoid getting themselves into hot water before inevitably dropping this theoretical update that involves Clash Mini being merged into the game. What do you think? Do you think Clash Royale is healing, or do you think there are many issues still yet to be addressed, and is it too soon to say that the game is healing? Share your opinion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot and it keeps you updated on when I next post. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.